I have worked, I've built more actually within landscape and infrastructure. As I said, we did competitions just in our free time in the evenings and in the weekends. And we won one that was actually built, and it was this one. This used to be a traffic street with 4 lanes of traffic. And in this competition we proposed to take away some of the traffic and park in another direction, and to make one urban floor from one facade to the other without any differences in height. And it was a big master plan competition. This is the main street of this suburb, and it's, yeah, in Europe we like houses to be the same height and have the same plane of the facade all the way through the street, then the street is good, but this one is not. It jumps and flips and so on. So to make it a better space, we wanted to plant this double set of trees all the way through, and this is almost 1 kilometer from one end to the other. And we won the competition, but we still had to persuade the city that we should do this. So we had to take them and show them what these trees could do. So we must find a place where trees were already grown and had the right size. From the competition, here is the city floor we proposed, and we developed this zone in the middle that we called Rambla, like in Barcelona, where you could park cars if you had to, but you could also say that sometimes cars would not be there, and it could be a marketplace or something. Yeah. And then we have this granite, which is the black, and concrete, which is the white, and different details. And we worked with this for a long time, and it was built in several phases, but in the end we have built all this kilometer and bought very much granite and very much concrete, and developed a square here and a square further down, and a fountain. Here I will show you another picture of the fountain. It comes right out of the street floor, as you can see. Just a vertical sprinkler here. And then it has some light effects. And we developed urban furniture for the project, and custom-made details for the urban floor. Here are some of the furniture details, and a bollard. And you can see the relation here of concrete to granite. We found a warm tone of concrete color that we thought would match this project. And all the stripes that usually is painted onto the asphalt, we could integrate and build out of granite stones. Yeah, so here's the urban floor, and here is after rain, and here is another square where we have a very large bench, and we have the fountain here, and another tree. So this is the fountain at night. We built in some light so that we could lit up the water here. And then these rings of light, you can see some of them are on and some of them are out. A computer is giving them a random pattern, so they light up and they fade out in a random pattern, like if rain is falling on the surface of a lake or something. And having set up 150 military trees that are ordered and in line down the street, we have one special tree that is alone and very sculptural and has a special light effect on it. So that was something that is kind of bigger than a house, but it's still space and it's still architectural thing. An even bigger thing or project I was involved in was an urban highway. This is Copenhagen, and we designed a highway that runs all the way here, or actually an extension of the highway. It is the only what's it in English? Expressway there is in Copenhagen. This is an old master plan of Copenhagen that is called the finger plan, as you can see. And the idea of the finger plan, which is something that is still followed, actually, even though it's from 1947, it is still the plan of Copenhagen, basically, is that the suburbs should run out in fingers, and then the green forest and the creeks and so on should be allowed to come in between the fingers. And what this highway does is that it connects all these suburbs, so it runs through some suburban area and then through a little bit of forest and then suburban area and so on and so forth. Yeah, and we analyzed that, of course, and it has many connections and so on. It's not like a freeway in the landscape. It is something completely different. It is a very complicated road. It is set under the terrain in some parts. It is set on the terrain in others, and it even runs on an elevated platform here and back on the terrain. We were 3 architectural companies working together on this big project of building this, and many engineers, of course. And my special task was to coordinate with everybody, but to take special care of the sound screen, which is 56,000 square meters of wall running all the way through the city. Something I think you can find in Japanese urban areas, but is very rare in little Denmark. The idea is that the side of the screen that faces the cars is very technical in a sense, where the other side that faces the neighbors and the landscape is very different, and there's a lot of plants and so on. And we introduced the idea of slanting the wall slightly to open up the space for the neighbors and to catch a little sound for the cars. Or that's what we told the client, but actually it is because that when a wall runs through the curves of a street or a road, it gives very wonderful forms and shapes if the wall is slanted, much nicer than if they are vertical. And because it is a slight and minute, but it is an acoustical advantage to tilt it a little bit, it was allowed. And it made geometry completely very complicated. And we also designed and built 14 new bridges, because it is in an urban area, so there are a lot of bridges, and we built many models of how to coordinate the screen and the walls and the bridges and the edges of the bridges and so on. You can see here form studies of different edges of bridges and different ways to connect bridges to the landscape and so on. So there was a lot of work, of course, involved in forming all those details. And here the wall is coming up. And yeah, you can see that it is tilted a little bit, and it has a very smooth line on the top, and it runs almost like a carpet. That was at least what we wanted. We also customized lamps and everything to make it a coherent thing. Here you can actually see a complication in the geometry that I like very much. Engineers they all wanted all the things in the wall to be vertical, but then if the terrain is a little not horizontal, then you get a jagged line up here, and we didn't want that. So we wanted to move everything so that it is perpendicular to street, but these could not be perpendicular, so everybody said that's not going to be nice. Had to say yes, it would be very nice. Believe in it, and they built it, and I think it is nice. Yeah, it's a big project, so we built a prototype. Yeah, it has a deep detail so that you can see the shades from the sun and whatnot. And we designed a lot of things actually for roads, traffic lights, and signs, and things inspired perhaps from ships, masts, and so on. This is another sound screen we built in Copenhagen, and also is a study of how to make things run smooth and evenly along jagged surfaces, inspired perhaps by things like this. We won a competition designing things for a new metro built in Copenhagen. Not the train, but these things that are put in the urban space so you can see when trains are coming. And we designed bus shelters for a Danish city that is for a company that is all over the world. So now these are also in different parts of Australia and cities, other places. And we designed some, like this, platforms for, there's a water bus in Copenhagen, so you can, with a bus ticket, you can take a boat to the other side of the harbor, and they have different stops, so we developed a set of stops for the harbor. Yeah, are you awake? Are some of you awake? Okay. I also designed a lot of objects and furniture for architecture like this one, which is a shelving system. So you can put books in it, and if you pick the white bookshelf, then perhaps red books is good. It's very simple construction. It has no screws and no glue and none of such things. It's just a steel sheet that is cut and has a little tongue here, and it is bent obviously, and this tongue fits into a groove in the shelf, and when you place that one in that one and put in a few of them, you can turn them either way because there's a groove in each side, then it becomes a rigid construction without any further ado. And to illustrate how simply it is, I brought in some friends to build one, and we shot some photographs and had fun. So that's it. Then it's bigger than before. Yeah. And it's in production and so on, so it's a product. And I designed this folding table. I think furniture that can do different things and are collapsible or something interesting. And folding tables, I thought, is often a table, and then when you fold it, it is, it looks strange. So I wanted to design a folding table that was as nice when folded as it is when it is unfolded. And my solution was, as you can see, this groove that hides the mechanism, and it is very flat when it is packed together, and it has this double color, so you get a little warm light, if you want, under your table. And it is made in a sandwich construction, so it's mostly hollow, so it's very lightweight, and you can have it so that it has a rubber thing laminated in here, so when it is packed, it has kind of a bumper like a car. And I forgot the weight, but it is around 10 kilos or so. It's very lightweight. And it can only happen because I found this hinge that has actually 5 axes to it so you can't see the hinge on the outside. So details are very, very important. I also designed some bespoke furniture, like these benches, and also these tables. The chairs obviously are from another designer. And this table is what we call a shaker foot, because it does not have a leg on the edge, and that means that it is good with benches, because you have to slide in and out, obviously, when you sit on a bench. And it has this construction, so it's mounted on the underside of the table with snaps, so you can dismantle it and put it away very easily. I was some years ago partner in a bigger studio, and we made our own studio. We found this wonderful space in an industrial building in Copenhagen, and we renovated it and put in a new floor and new glass walls for meetings to take place and so on. And we had 600 square meters, and we were 10 people working there, so it was fantastic. And we had many good clients. We designed for years. My older partner did, and I became his junior partner. These things for a company called D-Line. Yeah. And it's a very big range. It's the biggest range there is of stainless things for buildings. You can have everything for buildings from that range. I worked a lot with this German lighting company called KADK, and developed these spotlights that are used mostly for museums and shops and so on. And there's a lot of German optical precision to these spotlights, and they come with many filters and lenses and things. So to express this technical superiority, we created something that is a little like a sextant or something, but actually it is basically a lock, because what happens with these, we understood what problem we could solve is that if people push them, they go out of focus, or if they are heavy, they get tired and they get out of focus, so we put in this lock. We also developed an uplight. They were very much used through some years, but now that we have other computer screens than the big ones, they are not used so much anymore. Yeah. And also this range of spotlights that are very small, so they can be used in the living areas. And I like objects, and I like to work with small things, and there are a lot of details that are important in this one, like this little ring that makes the light a little different from here to here. And the thing inside here gets warm, so air needs to come through. So to work with how to show that the air comes through and make this opening where also a little light comes out and so on, I think it's very interesting. And we built many, many models of these things, even though they are so small. This is models. These shapes are sanitary goose. So this is a toilet, and this is a bidet, and this is a wash basin, and they are in 1 to 5, so they are this small, but by moving the camera very low, it looks like Titanic, and we can study and see this shape. And we developed many, many wash basins and things in porcelain, and it's a very nice factory to work with, because industry is often something that makes a lot of noise and makes a lot of pollution and so on, but ceramic factories are quiet and things are very nice. Okay, many building details have we've been working with. Also, for instance, this signage system for a little museum in Copenhagen, where we work both with the graphics and with the detailing of how to hang these signs. And in a way, I think of it as jewelry of architecture, that the house is there first, but to put in these things is like putting jewelry on a beautiful woman or so. I work actually a lot with science because I have also working with industry and companies. I always found it interesting, and sometimes I have been on the board of directors. For instance, for this company, which is a sub-company of Lego. You know Lego? They make toys. You build with Lego in Japan? Yeah. That's a Danish company, maybe you didn't know, but and it's family owned. They have several sub-companies. One of them was Modulix. Now it is sold, and now I'm not on the board anymore, but I was on the board. And being on a board of directors in a company is something where you meet every 2 months, and the other guys who are there, because it is guys and not women, for some reason, but the others, they talk about money and figures and percentages and stuff, but not so much about the products actually. But being an architect and a designer, you can see some things actually that they cannot see with their numbers. And I made them this sketch for a meeting and said they had a lot of different products, but they always wanted to discuss how to put them on the wall. So see, this is the wall of a house, and they have some kind of bracket also always that they attach to the wall, and then comes the sign, and on the sign there's some kind of graphics. And I could say this is kind of hardware, and this is firmware, and this is in a way software. And what I could explain to them was that the development costs of working with these things are very low out here, and maybe medium here, and they are rather high here. To develop these details cost a lot of money and changes a lot with the product. Where this one out here, a sign company makes every sign is unique in a sense. So they were very customized out here. But what they didn't understand was that we all only look at this and are not very interested in that. And I found after some time that this sketch from this meeting discussion had become very important. It was actually in their agendas of strategy discussions on a global level and so on. So what I want to say is simply that architects and their drawings, you should treasure them, and sometimes we can see things that other professions do not see. Okay, that's, I think, enough of the things I've been doing, and I would like to show you some, because I have also for years been a teacher, and I have some things I would like to share with you on studying and teaching. So student works, and I say that this next section of talk will be about the importance of, from time to time, to get your hands dirty. In our department, we do make drawings of architecture, and they can sometimes look like this, for instance, or they can be more straight, and they can look, for instance, like this. And but we can also work with things that are not houses, but other things. In this case, the proposal and the design object is this bridge, and not the houses. They are already there, but they needed this bridge, and the student worked out this proposal. Or we can work with smaller things like this object, that is a chair that you can see is made from laser cut plywood, and when put together, all these flat pieces get this great curvature. So regardless of whether it is about architecture or furniture or something much bigger than architecture like planning and landscape, what I want to talk about is the importance of making, of actually doing things with your hands and not sort of think all the time. I show you here an example of a workshop that we have done from time to time. Not exactly this one, we change it every time. I'll show you a few examples. But in this case, the student had 2 weeks. And the first day of the workshop, they received 1 sheet of 9mm plywood each. And 9mm is a sheet of plywood that is too thin to do anything in itself. It's rather slashing. But on the other hand, you cannot bend it all the way around. It's also a little bit rigid. And the task was to make cuts in your sheet. And what you cut out from the sheet should be a piece of furniture. And what you leave should be of graphical significance so that it can hang together with the other sheets as a wall. And you can see here in the workshop that everybody arranges their furniture so that they have some graphical precision to what is left of the sheet. And then this was one rule. And the other rule was that you must put your piece of furniture together without using glue or screws or nails, only other materials. So what we had after 2 weeks was a fantastic study of dovetails, and I don't know what these are in English, but you see them often in Japanese traditional architecture. And we have leather string to tie things together, and many different ways of attaching things to each other simply by its form. So I think it was a great study. And we had all this furniture that goes even beyond the picture. And we had all this that we could put up as an exhibition wall, and everything was great, so we won a prize for the most innovative exhibition that year. So we have repeated the system. Here's another one. We had to have 3 weeks for this because here the plywood is bent and laminated. It's a longer process, but one student did these 2 fine stools, and others worked with treating the surface and different geometries of building these chairs. And we have done so with steel wire, giving everybody only steel wires and 2 weeks to build a chair. And we had all these chairs. Here's one of them in detail. Then we gather up all these things when we have made them, and then we go to Milan because there is the furniture fair, the biggest one in the world. And every time I go to Milan, which I do every second year, because 2 years, every year is too much. Every 2 years, I always meet some Japanese student that has been in our university and interested in furniture. We have some longer furniture courses also integrated with architecture. And this is one student who built this rocking chair, and a company was so happy about it that they said, we will produce it, but you must make also the dining room chair and also the bar chair for higher tables. And that's a very typical design exercise that you need to do, not just the mother or the father, you should also do the brother and the sister and the cousin and so on. And it can be tricky. One way we also teach about human scale and about how to build things in reality is to look at things that already exist. So we measure, for instance, chairs. And you can see this is a Gio Ponti chair, a very famous chair. And this one is another old one, traditional one. And what these students do is that they mock up this chair so that the center line or the center plane rather, is completely level with the drawing surface, and then they use a weight and a piece of string, and they can take every point on the chair and move it to the paper. And you say, couldn't they just put it in a 3D scanner or something? Yeah, they could, but you see, by doing this, and it takes a full day, and it is great fun once you get into it. But what is interesting is that they get to see, they look at the furniture much more closely than you would if you just see it and say, okay, it's nice or it's not so nice. But you see all kinds of details and shapes, and you learn about the size of the human body and the requirements of what you need to sit down and how you can construct things in clever ways and so on. So afterwards, when you do your own proposals, you sort of have a better vocabulary, simply. And that's something we talk a lot about, how construction is also a vocabulary. And every detail is important. Just to put two things together, it can be done in so many ways, even though the idea here is the same. Exactly how you do it is very, very important, how you articulate your idea. Furniture drawings traditionally are drawn like this, with all the pictures on top of each other, and some people think that that is a very complicated way of drawing, but actually it is much better for reading the drawing, because once you get into the process of discerning what is the plan and what is the section and the elevation here, once you can see that all the lines that your eye must follow to see how the details relate to each other is much shorter, so it's actually a much better way to draw these things. But it's a learning process, and I often show these drawings to say that everybody cannot read drawings. We have a lot of people in the university who say that it's important to be able to read and write, and I think it's important for architects to say it's very important also to be able to draw and to read drawings. And you don't read drawings just by seeing what is on them. You have to look in and see what is in there. Yeah. So we have built a kind of a set of courses on various restrictions of design variations, so that we can attend to detail. And sometimes we start studies with variations of detail like this one. How many ways can you find of putting two simple pieces of wood together? And of course sometimes we look at Japanese tradition, but we do not dare to do like that, because that is the most advanced and fantastic level. We will never get there. But looking at details is important, and yeah, here's a chair that is made only of sticks. Now I talked a lot about furniture, but it's not just for the sake of furniture. Sometimes we build with our hands something that is bigger than furniture. So I show you here a little tower that some students built in the department some years ago. Here's one joint in 1:1. And here's a scale model of the tower, and the idea of the tower was a little bit abstract. The idea is that every joint here has the same amount of plywood, but it is hollow down here, and it is solid in the other end, but the middle here has cut out just as much as the solid enclosures and so on. So it's a mutating tower, a little difficult, but it was 6 meters high, and these students took a month of their summer vacation to build it, and we found someone who would pay for the massive amount of plywood that went into this endeavor. And here you can see I love pictures with university students with a screwing machine and a handsaw, so on. You can see that you could go inside and And it was arranged that it was put in a Danish museum of art that is called Louisiana, where it's a museum for modern art, and it stood there in their garden for a whole summer. So now, if you're not too tired, my idea is to show you that it's not just about furniture, but I would like to show you a diploma work and a presentation from a diploma work. So I would talk a little also about how to do research for a project. And so what I wanted to do was to simply take this diploma work presentation and move it here onto your screen. And so this is a diploma work from a few years ago, and the student's presentation. And I will not explain this project in detail. I would just like to show you what it could look like from our department. So the site is this place in Copenhagen. This is the main train station, and this is a busy street. And there's a big hole here, and the trains go down here. And this hole has been discussed many times. And she chose to work with it. And this is her agenda. So this is the site. So she has the vision of doing something in that place. And the function she would like to put there is a flower market, a flower shop basically. Like the one that you can find in central Copenhagen. This is a nice square with, these buildings that are without gaps and a coherent wall. And here's a flower market, and such a thing she would like to put there. And then there's of course some analysis of the railroad coming through the city and how this was built in the late 19th century and the meaning of this place in several ways, and what planning ideas already are on the table for this site, and some previous proposals other people have done where they cover the whole thing and make a formal square or something. And she claimed that she would like still to have the whole, because it's interesting that the trains can be seen down there. And she wanted actually that we could experience even more the trains and the whole. And after that story, she talks a little about the flowers and what it means with the flowers in the city and so on. And she wants to bring these things together. So first she must study this site. So she goes to this high building designed by Arne Jacobsen, and she arranged with them, because she's a very sweet girl, she could persuade them to give her a corner hotel room for a day and a night without paying very much. And she put her camera there. And I will show you now what she found out. Just a minute. It's, I have to use different software, so it comes in here. And this could go full screen as well. Start full screen. So this starts at noon. The time is running in the bottom here, and then you can see, fascinating what is happening, how cars are moving and how pedestrians are moving. She could of course see the film also slower if she wants to, but now all the pictures are there. She has a full day and a full night of observation of what goes on in this square, how the cars come around and how long they stay up here and which route they take out. And yeah, it's made in the winter time, I think late January or start February. So most of the night is very long and the day is rather short, and it is cold, unpleasant in many ways. But there's a lot of urban lighting in the night in Copenhagen. All the streets are lit, as you can see. And it's 8 o'clock before we get some light, and then we also get some fog, as you see. Okay, so from this, she was then able to make some analysis of how cars and people and bicycles and so on moves around here. But then there's this other issue of the flower market, of course. We must learn something about what does a flower market mean? What does it need? How should I design a flower market? So, of course, you must do the same thing. And I will just show you this video because it's also a little funny, I think. Oops. That's not. Just a moment. Here it comes. And then. Full screen. So this is the place of the flower market, and now it is, as you can see, the 9th of February, and it is 6 o'clock in the morning, and the people are already there with their stuff, and then it takes actually 3 hours to put up this flower market every morning. First the umbrellas and the tents, and then come all the flowers in there. They have some special carts for the flowers, and they spend a lot of time arranging how the flowers, of course, should be put there so that it looks nice, and light they need, and a lot of things goes into that. And while staying there for 3 hours and shooting all these photographs, which of course something automatic, she could walk around and interview and talk to the people of the flower market and find out many details about what requirements does a flower market have. And the good thing about doing the study with sort of engaging with the real thing is also that having such a video and showing to the diploma jury, the diploma jury cannot sort of ask anything or say, I don't believe this, because they weren't there. And the video is a very good proof that this thing has actually been studied. And then it's also fun. Now I want to just quickly show you the rest of the proposal. Because now we started, sorry. Oops. Already saw this. I accidentally stopped. Yeah, so now she knows a lot about the flower market and what the requirements are for having a flower market, and all these things can be stated. And there's another video of how you pack together all these things. You can skip that. And then there are more considerations of how the sun moves and the people move, and where the important facades are for the afternoon sun and for the city life, and from where the pedestrians will usually enter. And these parameters together make sort of the shape, the basic shape for the proposal, which is a bridge that crosses this gap in this way. And here comes the flower market, and then there are some considerations of where to put in support and so on. And the thing gets a little better shape because now it has more surfaces that can be seen from different important places. It is more exposed to the busy facade over here, and it sort of opens and invites for people who come walking this way and so on. So the shape is sort of tuned to be better. And then there's the same set of considerations in the section. There are many levels at this place in the city. There are some people just walking on the surface and they don't look into the hole so much. And there are other people up in the high buildings and they look down into the hole. And there are also people in the train and they look up and out of the hole. So how to bring these things together, these different layers? Something vertical must be installed. And the idea is then to have a forest, a park, and plant trees in the hole, and to have lighting so that it can be seen also in the night, and that will have the benefit that the trees can be experienced from different places and so on. So now the proposal is more or less coming together, filling up the hole with nice trees in between the railroad tracks and making this bridge with flower market that opens up to different areas of the city. And the flower market works very well because we know everything about shops and whatnot, and illustrations showing that this is much more fun than before, and the experience of coming now to the main station and to be able to walk on this bridge between the trees and to buy your flowers there. And then some technical details of how this bridge could be constructed, and it could be built from this naturally rusted iron that is used for railroads. It would be a very nice material. And you can see the section here of the small building part is has undergone some level of detail, so it's rather designed actually with hinges and ways to open and close, and how it could be built, especially the roof with these gas pistons and hold open, and all the water and different details from the flower requirements are taken care of. Big overhangs so they don't get hurt in the sun, and yeah, many things. And then, of course, illustrations of how you experience that if you are in the train, or if you are in the high building and looking down. It's a flower market, and here is the park. So that's, I think, it's not so much about whether this is fantastic architecture or form. It's about the process that is a careful study of the different things that goes into this, and a way to react sort of to all those different parameters. And I think it has a certain richness to it. Yes? Okay, then I will finish sort of my own presentation. I'll show you another diploma work, but not so much in detail, because I would like to explain that no matter if you want to be innovative with houses or with furniture or anything, you need to, I think, to get your hands dirty and to work with things physically. So this is another diploma student with a completely different project. This is a guy, and he is about to become a father. He will actually become an architect only a few weeks before he will be a father, and that, of course, means a lot to him. And he also likes bicycles very much. And then he go and look at these bicycles that all young parents in Copenhagen, they buy such a bicycle, and it has 3 wheels, and it takes up full bike lane. But being a cyclist himself, he does not like so much that it has 3 wheels, because then when you drive on an uneven surface, you will sit like this, and it is very heavy to run and so on. So what he wants to develop is a bicycle that can hold 1 to 2 kids, 2 small kids, or one that has grown a little bigger, or a lot of luggage, but has only 2 wheels, and such a thing did not exist. And you can say that has nothing to do with architecture, but in a way it has everything to do with architecture. Because what you need to do to find out, you get into the problem, how high should it be? What does it mean to lift a little kid up? And what does it mean for the kid to sit in there? How high should I make the walls before they think that they will fall out? And how does the mother feel? She should also feel that the kids are well protected. And to find out that, you have to build a mock-up, simply to put up something that does not look like, but that acts like the thing you are producing. To have, so this, in this case, it was some ring that was positioned in what we thought would be a good position and an idea of walls and so on, and then trying to lift babies in and out and see how they felt. And then drawings were developed on the wall. We put paper on the wall, and the drawings were developed in full scale, in 1:1. Right there with the wheel in the right size and so on, because then you could directly relate your body to the drawing. And I think precisely the same could be done with architecture, and at least where it is close to the body, and also of course with the furniture. And then that is to find out what are the right sizes and the right shapes, to find out how it should sort of look. Of course, it is good to make scale models and do it in another material and so on, but that's another matter. So in foam, we created a lot of different models for how this frame could be built. And it was actually very innovative, because usually such bicycles is a frame of steel or aluminum and then a box. But here, the box and the frame is one thing, and the proposal was to produce everything in cast hemp fibers, something that would require some innovation. And then, of course, computer models and the coming mother in Photoshop placed on the bicycle and so on. Yeah. So apart from getting close to things in 1:1, I would also emphasize the scale 1:20, which actually is where not you have so much architectural detail, but rather an overall, an overview of how details in architecture fit together, and also where space is apparent as a context for furniture and how you live with things. And this is obviously a model in 1:20. It's a very good scale, because you can see furniture, but not so much as a shape, but rather how they act together with the people and so on. And also in drawings, a figure has this size, so you can sort of relate bodily to the drawing. So I think it is very important to try things out as realistic and so on as possible. And I will just end with these pictures. Some other students, this is more than 10 years ago, but mocking up something on the studio floor to find out how much height do you need in this very little igloo shape, and how they engage themselves in different kinds of production, this one and even this one, because what they wanted so much to find out was how to build a little thing, a little tiny movable architecture to have on your bicycle or behind your bicycle, that when you get there, you just flip it up and then you can sleep in it, 2 people. Or if you take off the wheels and put on the skis instead, you could take it to the snow. Yeah, so we worked a lot also with micro-architecture, architecture that is very small. Yes, enough from me.